Welcome in. It's almost time.
All right, everybody, welcome in. Happy Memorial Day. We are the Sports Hounds, exclusively here on A2D Radio. Brad Ryer, myself, Rob Brinkman, former Major Leaguer Doug Mientkiewicz, the newest member of our panel. Play topics. We have big Game 7, Boston, Miami, another Boston team in the middle of a 3-0 controversy. We'll get Doug's thoughts. Doug was obviously on the 2004 Boston Red Sox that came back against Brad's Yankees from a 3-0 deficit.
He always has to bring this up, doesn't he?
Too soon?
It's amazing. Everything comes full.
Yeah, it's too soon.
Too soon?
Yeah,
It's like 25.
When I'm buried in the cemetery, then it won't be too soon.
Someone said that to me. So someone said to me, I said something about it like last week, and they goes, "It's too soon." One of the buddies I coach with on my high school team, he's a diehard Yankee fan. I'm like, he goes, "Too soon?" He goes, "It's always too soon to talk about that."
Like, isn't it amazing that was like 20 years ago?
Yeah, don't remind me. I know. It seems like there's days when I'm like, man, it didn't happen, and there's days where I'm like, it happened yesterday. So I get it. I mean, I don't want to live in the past, but at the same token, it's like it's been a long time. It feels like it was yesterday until you watch the footage, and it looks like it's in like ancient history compared to what it was. How HD is now, and everything is beautiful. But no, I think that's something that will, I don't know. I'm torn. I mean, you gotta love being down 3-0, and you should root for. Right, I did it with the Red Sox. I'm a Boston guy. I played for the Red Sox, did that against the Yankees, come back, win a World Series. But I'm not a diehard NBA fan, but I do like the Heat. I do appreciate the way they do things. And I should be a fan of another team coming back from 3-0. Selfishly, I don't want them to do it. And two, I want to see Jimmy Butler in the finals. But I know that Boston's a better team. The fact that it's Game 7 to boot is like Celtics fans should be upset. The fact that this series has gone on this long. If you look at it on paper, like the Heat shouldn't even be in the same arena with these guys.
No, especially with Tyler Hero out. I mean,
he's the only guy that, other than Jimmy Butler, that could really do anything off the dribble up until the postseason. But there's so many good stories for the Heat. I think you have all the undrafted guys, and they're coming into their own, and they're making a name for themselves. And I hate using that because they're not undrafted guys now; they're NBA players, so it's a difference, and they don't get enough credit. I just love the fact that the unsung guys are doing it. Even in the losses, Martin and those guys are coming out and like showing the world that they're. I mean, how much hope are they giving other players who aren't first-round draft picks a chance and hoping that they can do the same thing they're doing? So, like, that's the one thing I love about the Heat. They don't care how much draft stock you have. They find them. And if you're an NBA guy, they find you. And they have a culture and they make players, but those guys deserve a lot of credit for grinding and staying with it. Now they're making a name for themselves, so that's awesome for them.
And then on the other side of things, when we do get a finals matchup, Jokic, I mean, he was a second-round pick.
Right. So, I get the NBA wanted the Lakers and the Celtics anyways. Like the fact that they see there's a possibility of a Denver-Miami final. I'm sure people are cringing over that, like the ratings. But then we'll see. Something's got to give. I just hope it's like a game that's good and like it was the other night. I mean, you're 0.1 seconds away from going to the NBA Finals, but the beautiful thing is there's one more day, and you have another shot to get back on the floor and do it again.
How do scouts miss that bad, Doug? I mean, you see it all the time. Brady went in the 6th round. You got Jokic, Dennis Rodman, 2nd-round picks, Draymond Green, Mike Piazza.
Montana in the 3rd round.
I just think at the end of the day, no matter how many stats and how much analytics we put into sports, you cannot measure what's inside of a human being. And you look at all the character traits those guys have. We're trying personality tests and all this comlink stuff and to find what make these guys tick inside. And at the end of the day, you don't know. And the only way you're going to find that out is time. I mean, there's something to be said about guys that refuse to say no. And they don't, they take honesty, they take truth, and they don't let it affect them, it drives them. And I think that's what you look at all the greats. I mean, like Brady, like you don't think he had a chip on his shoulder there's list goes on and on. Those guys, they have there's a different chromosome inside those guys that just keep their will up to do it year in and year out. They keep doing it and they keep proving people wrong. And, God bless them for that. Cause that's at a lower level. Like I obviously have nowhere near Tom Brady, the guys we're talking about, but like I had that chip. I was always told I'm too small. I'm not fast. I don't hit for power, but I still stick around. And, that's what I tell our kids or kids that I deal with in this recruiting service thing too, is like, it doesn't matter what they say about you now. All I'm trying to do is get your foot in the door. And then once I get your feet on campus, it's up to you now. And you push and you work. It doesn't promise you playing time. It doesn't promise you to be good, but you increase your chances of proving people wrong on a daily basis if you grind. And if you grind long enough and your chance and your break comes and you capitalize on it, that's, we didn't do it, you did it. And that's kind of the thing where you cannot measure that, how many times we've missed it in pro ball, baseball-wise. Well, you don't know what makes him tick. You don't know what he has inside until adversity hits. And then you see.
What was your break, Doug? Like you were obviously with the Twins, you get called up. Like, did someone get hurt?
I think my honest break was I transferred high schools my senior year in high school. My high school coach got fired for some real beyond bullshit, like parent crap back in the 90s.
Right.
And it doesn't go anywhere. It's still been around. It's still around now. But honestly, like all the flack that everybody's giving me about what I said about A-Rod, he was my high school teammate. And I transferred to Westminster to catch. And he was on the team, and being around a bunch of great players and being around A-Rod, the scouts came to practice every day. And I think just me being around
right
and watching, being like Alex helped me with that. And that's, the story. And I got drafted out of high school, and I went to college. But I think a lot of things. My dad told me I signed at Florida State. My dad's like, you'll never play there. And, you hear that of the 12th round pick of the Blue Jays. And my dad said, take the money because you'll never get another chance. But the odds you get another chance to play pro ball are slim to none. Okay. But all I wanted to do growing up was play in the College World Series. I was a Miami Hurricane fan, watched them go to Omaha, win it in 85 and all those years, 82, 85. Watching them, I thought Omaha was going to be the pinnacle of what I wanted to do. I thought I could achieve it. And I went to Florida State and started practicing against the team in the fall, and we had the number 1 pick, the number 7 pick, the number 9 pick, the number 17 pick on our pitching staff. And I just played. And I didn't think anything of it. So I think I never really had a moment where everything clicked. I had just a combination of I kept playing and realized, well, shit, I'm pretty good. So, but the Twins, I was lucky. Again, right place, right time. We went young. We went young in 98, 99. And 19 rookies on the team, and it just so happened to be my group with Torrey Hunter and the rest, Jock Jones, Corey Koski, AJ Brzezinski, the list goes on. And I got my chance then, and I was lucky enough to be with an organization that stayed with their own farm system.
So now you are catching a lot of heat. You were on with AJ with A-Rod, and he was your teammate, and you said some stuff. Do you want clarify any of your comments? Explain any of your comments?
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything I wouldn't say to his face. And I get what people are saying. They're just like, well, you probably wanted money. I know I never asked Alex for an autograph, let alone money. It's not that I'm like. If you also hear me saying the same thing in the same interview, I was just like, well, I said, who am I to argue? He's on Shark Tank. I love Shark Tank. I watch it every night. Like you're hanging out with Warren Buffett and Mark Cuban. Like I'm not jealous by any stretch of the imagination, but I've always stuck up for him. And I said this I actually was on my text with our high school coach who texted me. We had a text about the comments. I said, all I've ever wanted was not even just a thank you for having my back for all the years. And that being said, like when we do stuff together with our high school team, because we won a national championship and our guys are close, and we do stuff, Coach Hoffman, Rich Hoffman's, I think he's the winningest high school baseball coach in the history of high school baseball. I could be wrong, but I know that he's won national championships, 2 with Westminster, went to Stoneman Douglas. Everywhere he goes, magic happens. And having him hear me what I said, and he's like, well, it's the truth. And at the end of the day, what it is I saw Alex be more real in 2007. Like real, I mean like how he would hang out with us. And if more people would have seen that, and I've said this, and I said that I said this also, if more people during his playing career would have saw how he is now and how he was in 2007, he wouldn't have been public enemy number one for everything. But a lot of things he brought on himself. And that being said, I'm not nowhere near bitter. I'm just honest. And, I'm not trying to cause a conflict out of nowhere. And it is what it is. It is. It's just the truth. And I think I've had from the countless texts I've had from people that played against him and played with him that, hey, you know what? It was a racy comment, and it wasn't just him. There was a couple other people involved in that. But like I said, I'm never going to go back on anything I say or, I said it, I own it. It rubbed some people the wrong way. I don't think Alex batted two eyes at it because, again, we have a different relationship than some people think. But no, I didn't say anything that I wouldn't say to Alex's face or haven't said to him before. So it is what it is. I honestly, I've said this before. He's been told what to say and how to say it since he was like 13. And, the only thing that I really bothers me is like he was arguably going to go down as the best player to ever put spikes on if he stayed clean. You're first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. Obviously, everybody knows it. And why? Just why? You're the best player in the history of the game, and you didn't need that. But ego's a powerful thing, and like I said, I just he was arguably the greatest player to ever put cleats on before that happened.
All right. So tonight's topics, we got Game 7 in the NBA. We have Doug Mientkiewicz on, obviously, and we have some hockey talk, and we'll do around the MLB. Each and every week, we are brought to you here by Philly Sports Trips, the Philadelphia 5for5 sports travel company. Premium travel and tailgating experience for the passionate fans of Philadelphia. Go to phillysportstrips.com. Number of Phillies road trips available. Number of Eagles road trips available. Boston, Seattle, Kansas City, Los Angeles, just to name a few. Also brought to you by Baguio's Breads, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pie, sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs. Mention A2D Radio for 10% off your purchase. Always remember to hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn those notifications on. Don't miss a damn thing here on A2D Radio. We got shows every day. It's crazy. Summer's a little tough. Phillies scuffling, Yankees getting it together. But I know we got you all year round, 365 here on A2D Radio. Let's get to our poll question of the night. Our poll question is going to be brought to you by our buddy Alan Foy at eXp Realty, looking for a change in career or brokerage, or buy or sell a home. Contact Alan Foy of eXp Realty, 302-682-8820, alan.foy@exprealty.com. Big Game 7 in the NBA Eastern Conference Finals. Winner takes on the Denver Nuggets. I believe Game 1 will be Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty simple. The Boston Celtics will advance to the NBA Finals. The Heat, they had their chance in Game 6. They had them dead to rights, and then Derek White inbounds the ball to, I believe, Tatum, and then everybody forgets about him, and he gets the tip in, and it's hard for me to envision a scenario, fellas, that Miami advances tonight. You got all that Boston mystique, all that Boston bullshit up at the Garden. They're very tough to beat for the last 50 years at home. Tatum's awesome in closeout games. The only thing I can really make an argument for the Heat is if Spoelstra comes up with some crazy game plan and just stifles Brown and Tatum, and then Jimmy's got to go off. Jimmy's over-under's 28.5 tonight. He's going to have to go way over that if the Miami Heat want to go to the NBA Finals. From a gambling spread perspective, I think it's a stay away. Do athletes get into that at all? Do they know what's going on in terms of –
I never did.
I never did.
Guys would say something or whatever. That's a big. I know football spreads where you see like, wow, they're 14-point underdogs in the NFL. That never happens. Right. But you couldn't, like how a baseball thing is like plus minus. I don't know what any of that means.
Yeah, baseball's tough because there's games every day, and
I get the basketball thing, but it doesn't make any sense because like you can't. I would think this would be like the worst thing to ever put money on was like what's going on in this Eastern Conference Finals. Because if you'd have told me that if one team had a chance to sweep, there's no chance it would have been the Heat, and they had a chance. And the only thing that I agree with the Game 6, it was a perfect Heat game. It was mucked up. It was, just low scoring. No one got really too ahead. But I was watching it, and I was like the Bam and Jimmy were like Jimmy was not even like trying to shoot or like go like to drive in, and like late in the third quarter or like early in the fourth quarter, I'm like he's not even looking for a shot. I'm just going, man, oh man, like if you'd have told me that they had whatever they had 13 points at some point combined, and we're only 10 back, I'm like Boston's leaving us around, and it's gonna cost them. And sure enough, but that's if you watch the Heat all season. That's every game they were in. It just wasn't pretty to watch. And you blink and you're like, it comes down to the last possession every time. And it's just, think about this. This is where I believe in mystique and I believe in magic and I believe in momentum and all that stuff, whatever you want to call it. How many 3-pointers are shot today and the rebound kicks off or kicks up? It never just kind of dribbles out of the basket to where they pass it to Marcus Smart. He shoots, should have drained it. It looked like he was in. It was in and then came out. And then Tatum and the other guy were just like literally crashing the boards from the design play from the start. And a 3-pointer out of control, the rebound is usually kicked out to the free throw line. And it just happened to go right there. That being said, going into Game 7, like everybody talks about Tatum. Okay, I know he scored 51 against the Sixers. Like, he disappears. The first half of Game 6, he was everywhere. And then what happened? Like, where'd he go? He didn't score a point in the third quarter. Like, where is he? Like, he just disappears on you. And it's like, I know he's great and superstar, all this stuff, but it's like, where does he go? Can he play 4 quarters? I haven't seen him play 4 quarters against the Heat yet. So, and then again, I always say about having that game at home, obviously momentum's huge. But if you start playing like garbage and you turn the home fans on the home team, is it really a home? And the Heat have proven going there and won 2 games already. So, it's anything can happen in a Game 7 as long as they keep it close. And I always say this, like if the Heat can weather the storm, like take their haymaker in the first quarter, in the first half, and don't go down. And if they keep it close, you just never know. Think about that game for me. Duncan Robinson had 2 great 3-point looks, and he missed them. It's a make or miss league. He makes those 3-pointers, the game's over. And I think a lot of knick-knack, to me, also it depends on how it's officiated. Period. If we get to the free throw line, we win.
I do want to get to the officiating, but Brad, your answer to the poll question?
Oh, I think Boston's going to win. I don't see how Miami can pull out of this. It's so tough, and Boston has all the momentum now, and they have to be as confident as all hell that they found a way to win that game on Saturday night. Although I still don't understand how a clock can go from 2.1 seconds to 3 seconds, and I don't want to say that there's any shenanigans, but I'm very suspicious. I feel like what am I watching? Soccer injury time? Yeah, well, where some guy goes, you know what? That's about 3-4 minutes. Let's just add that to the game. Let's add an extra second in case Boston misses to see who gets the rebound. Game 7 ratings would be really good.
I would love to get an NBA guy's perspective on like an 80s, 90s guy, like the Pistons in the 89, 90, 91. Like Michael's never going to say anything, but like, an NBA guy like Bird, McHale, Kurt Rambis, I would love to hear their take on today's fouls. Like really honestly, where I know Jimmy Butler got a flagrant one called in for, like, he hit somebody in the face with an elbow going up for a shot. And it's like, they used to clothesline each other for layups, like, and that wasn't even a personal. It's just like you watch it. It's like no wonder everybody's flopping all over the place. The only thing I don't like how Boston, like, they complain about every call. They complain about every call. And that's the only thing I'm like, how bad can you whine? Like, stop whining. Just play because you're better than the Heat. Just show it. But like I said, I'm with you on that. I don't know some of the stuff that goes on about the points and the extra seconds, but hey, this is what people live for sports-wise. It's good. It's, you know, hopefully it's close. If I was betting, I would bet on the Celtics. But there's something about Jimmy's played like absolute garbage in his mind probably in the last 2 or 3 games. He didn't take over, and he's got to be exhausted, right? He's guarding Tatum. He's got to, you know, he's been taking the ball down the floor. He's grinding. He's got to be exhausted. We'll see. We'll see what happens tonight. He asked for this. He wanted it. He got it. And we'll see. But like I said, Boston's, they're talented. I think it's a better finals if the Celtics go.
Doug, when he hit 3 foul shots in a row, that's all I need to know about Jimmy Butler. I mean, you know what? If I'll always remember the fact that when he had a chance to show the whole world, how clutch he is, and he calmly goes up there with 3 foul shots, two ties at the third, wins it. And he sinks all 3. I mean, what more can you say about the guy? I don't want to ever hear anybody say anything bad about him or anything else about that, because you know what? How many guys could actually do that?
There's making free throws and there's making those free throws.
Yeah,
but I also say too, like, he had that. I mean, even last year, Game 7 was in Miami. Like, they had the Game 7 was kind of a muck it up kind of game. No one ran away from it, and all of a sudden, I think the Heat came back late in the fourth quarter, and we were down 2, and Jimmy had the ball coming down, and instead of going for the tie, and he just went for the win, and it rattled out, kind of like Marcus Smart's ball did last night or 2 nights ago. Like, it was in and came out, and he just said, like, that shot kept me going this offseason. I want another shot, and to go up there and sink those 3 free throws after having such a bad night in his mind, having a bad night and going up and sinking those things. It's I hope for Spoelstra and the guys that they can pull this off.
Yeah, that's kind of like, I mean, I don't know what it would be like personally, but I mean, I'm sure you've had your moments where you're up in the 9th inning, with somebody on third base and 2 out, and you could, either tie the game or win the game, and you just stroke that single and win the game. I mean, that's kind of the same sort of thing, right?
That's exactly right. My dad threw me batting practice from when I was 5 years old till my last year in the big leagues. And he ended every single batting practice session with bases loaded, bottom of the 9th, down a run. What are you going to do? And every single day he put me in that position to where when it came up in a game, it was second nature. And he did the same thing on free throws. He made me, when I played basketball, he made me shoot 10 at the end of practice. I'm like, these are it. You're down 1. You got to make both of them to win. And if I didn't, I had to run. And so, like, that type of stuff, it's like he bred it into me, and that's kind of how these guys are. I mean, like, Jimmy's just got a different gear to go up there after I said a bad night shooting and just go ahead and I'm gonna put him in there, and he did. That's crazy. Like I said, it's amazing how 0.1 seconds. That's what makes sports so amazing. 0.1 seconds away from going to the NBA Finals, and now we're going back to Boston. So, the Heat took a mental haymaker, right? A mental haymaker with that. Let's see how they respond.
Doug, what about fatigue? Jimmy Butler, 47 of 48 minutes played in Game 6. Bam Adebayo, their big guy, 46 of the 48 minutes. Mm-hmm. Neither guy shot good in that. 5 for 21 for Jimmy, 4 of 16 for Bam. You got Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin, each over 40 minutes. And then you have, Strus 25, Robinson 20. Zeller didn't really play in Game 6, only 2 minutes. And then
I'm no NBA coach, but I don't see how you can have Max Strus on the floor with 3 seconds left on defense.
Right.
The other guy, the Highsmith guy they brought in when Vincent was out with a bad ankle, he seemed like longer length, right? You see what Boston's length is doing to the Heat. Like their size is just it's really messing with them. And man, I was like, I've never challenged Coach Spoelstra because he's one of those, like, I hate to say this and sound like this, but that's Zen guys. Like he's a great coach, but those guys buy into everything he talks about and they respond to him and he gets results. And that's like, but man, like, but you're right. Fatigue is huge. That's what I think people aren't saying enough about Jimmy Butler. It's like, why do he play so bad? Like, he's gassed. I mean, he's dragging Tatum around. He's guarding their best player. He's bringing the ball up. He's got to penetrate to dish to everybody else. Like, why isn't he shooting? I'm like, he probably has no legs left. Like, and it's not an excuse because everybody else do the same thing, but he's playing every minute of every single quarter. And these guys are human and like their emotional toll, like the playoffs it's like playing 3 games into 1. So I've always said this, the Heat could use one more guy, one more scorer, even with Tyler Hero healthy. They need one more guy because we're relying on guys that don't really have a track record. And it's like, for example, like I think it more on the defensive end. If Jimmy Butler puts his hands on somebody guarding the ball, he has a chance for steals. You put Caleb Martin on Jayson Tatum, they're going to call a foul on Martin, right? They probably wouldn't call Jimmy Butler's guard. And that matters. That means something. And I what I can't understand is, like, I never understood the Kyle Lowry pickup, and it's blowing my mind. I'm like, he played so bad. I mean, granted, he's a veteran. I understand it. But my goodness gracious, like, do something for us. Like Tom Kelly always said, I don't care if you play for us, just don't play for them. Like, and that was his line before every game. And that's the truth. Like, stop playing for the other damn team. You know, I know he's a veteran, but it's like, come on, man. Like, this is why we brought you here. Veteran leadership in the postseason. Help us.
How old is he now? Like 36, 37?
He's up there.
Yeah.
I also don't think they brought him here for the role he's been in. You know, it's like they probably a couple minutes before the end of the quarter, right? You know, I don't think they expected him to expand him this much. And I said, my gosh, like, not only are we not deep, but we're deep, but we don't have length, if that makes sense. I mean, like, we lost Tyler Hero. That was a huge blow. We lose Oladipo. It's like, how many? We have no guards left. And then Vincent goes down with a bad ankle. You're like, goodness gracious alive. Like, how many? There's only so many guards you can have on a team. And, you know, like I said, I just think they're gassed, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you got the Game 7. It's still Game 7. And we'll see.
Now, you mentioned officiating earlier, Doug, Brad. Oof. Always a factor.
Game 6 was terrible.
One Scott Foster is the lead official tonight. The Boston Celtics, are 13-0 this season when he is the lead official. Is that coincidence? Do you show up sometimes, Doug, and like, oh man, we got this guy. He never gives us calls. He gives the Yankees or the Rays. They get all the calls.
Oh, you know. I mean, like, there's pitchers umpires, there's hitters umpires, and there's umpires that like you, and there's umpires that don't like you. And but and then there's the postseason, where, you know, at least in my experience, I never had anyone I had beef with or like maybe didn't have a good rapport with ever kind of, you didn't know it in a playoff game. And it's just, I think baseball's different, right? Like, it's just like, those guys are excited to do that too. Like, they're locked in and they want, you know, like they want to get it right. I'm not an NBA guy, but I just know, like, maybe I'm like everybody else. I'm a super fan. But I'm like, my goodness gracious, like to me, Game 6, like, we drove the lane and ended up on our rear end, and the ball's going on the end of the floor. Like, we sneeze on Jayson Tatum, and it's a foul. It's like, hang on a second. Like I said, I'm no NBA official, but, you know, if it looks like it, smells like it, tastes like it, it isn't. And like, that stat, it tells you a lot. Maybe it's coincidence, who knows? But again, you're not trying to beat them 10 times, you're trying to beat them once. And is it hard? Yeah, it's always hard, and we'll see.
Creative Window Design. We'll get some comments. Comments brought to you by Creative Window Design, serving New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida. Fully authorized Hunter Douglas dealer. Contact Jeff at 609-226-0391 for a free consultation. Jermaine, he's got faith in Jimmy. I mean, what's he got to get tonight, Doug? Like 40, 50?
He's got to get one more point for the Heat and the Celtics. If it's 6, it's 6. If it's 60, it's 60. You just don't know. You don't know how. I mean, look, I just know that like when Bam and Jimmy have off nights together, the next night it's usually pretty epic. They're really on their game. They rarely have 2 bad stinkers in a row. I mean, that game was. I mean, I think I don't know the number or the stat, but it seemed like they missed 15 shots combined inside 10 feet, and they don't do that. So, like, again, like I get it. As a Heat fan, you're sitting there thinking like that game 6 was tailor-made for us. Celtics had their worst shooting night and pulled out a W, I think, in the whole season. They're not going to shoot like that again, that poorly. And the game was close, and we kept it close. I just feel like if the Heat keep it close, I think the Celtics find a way to dump it. They turn the ball over just like it's just a matter of, who gets the last run. And I again, it's game 7. I feel like something wild's going to happen.
That is a valid point, Doug. I mean, when they played the Sixers, it seemed like the Sixers, when the games were close, the Sixers found a way to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that nobody can account for is when Boston gets that run and then they get ahead of you, by big numbers, they don't let up.
They had a run like games
when they smell blood. They're they put the games. They finish you off.
They're today's player, like for a baseball analogy, like today's baseball player, they play defense when they hit. When they hit, they play great defense. When they don't hit, they don't play defense. When Boston's sinking shots, they play tremendous defense. When they're not making shots, they don't play defense. They don't get back. It's funny how that works. But again, there's no reason why this series should have been over before. If you told me before it started that we'd have a game 7 again, I told you you're crazy. And what happened the first 3 games, again, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how you get to game 7. Something can change, and it's only one game. But the only team that's really like sitting back, chewing on popcorn, going, ha is Denver. Like they're just like, go ahead. I hope you play 4 overtimes because you guys have got to be gassed.
Then you're going to whoever wins this series in the East. I mean, they're going to have to go to the altitude in Denver.
Correct.
Is that a thing, Doug? Like, how much does that?
I mean, outside it is. I mean, in Colorado, no doubt. I mean, it's
right.
Definitely something you don't really like. It doesn't immediately feel it. I know I went there after the All-Star break one year, and I had to play right field 3 games in a row, like 2008, I think. And I was like, this is the longest run in. And I think I had to lead off the inning like 7 times in 3 games. I told the bat boy, I'm like, put my helmet, my bat at the on deck circle, and then come get my glove because I'm out of breath getting all the way in from right field. But I mean, you do feel it. You those guys are so much more in tune, and they do so much more running. I think they would like. I think it's definitely a thing. But then again, today's day and age, they had to do so much to get those guys prepared, massage wise, and those chambers and all that other stuff. So, but it's definitely a thing.
Brian Wilson, he hopes the Heat win, but he doubts it. I did just take the Heat plus 7.5. So follow or fade. The choice is yours out there.
I feel like
the line's going down.
I just feel like it's one of those things where I sit here and I go back and forth. I'm like, if the Celtics win, they're going to blow us. They're going to blow the Heat out. I think it's going to be one of those 4-quarter epic. They're going to draining 3 after 3 after 3.
I want to be entertained for whatever 3 hours tonight. So many of these games, like Saturday, I had like half an eye on it. I DVR'd it buzzed through it when I got home. I was out and about for the Memorial Day weekend, but some of these games, I just turn it on, like, especially with the Sixers and the disaster that was. It's just like, really? Third quarter, I'm done. I'm out. I just want to see 4 quarters of basketball.
I just felt like game 6 is a perfect example. I said they were down 10. I'm like, it was like 6 minutes left or 4.5, and I was like, they're keeping us here. They're keeping us in it. We bang 2 3-pointers and it's a 4-point game. And the more you put it, the more, I feel like the more you keep the game close, the more Boston shits all over themselves.
There's our man Ryan Swoop. Check us out on Facebook. Basically, to sum it up, like why is it so hard to play in the Northeast Corridor? You played with the Mets, you played with the Yankees, you played with the Red Sox. We see it all the time. These guys sign here, they stink, and they go somewhere else, and they're good. So what is it about? Is it the media, the fan bases? Is it just too hard to play here? Are people like me and Brad just too mean?
I don't know if you're like, yeah, you guys are horribly mean. No, I mean, I think a lot of it is like, I think like for me personally, I put so much pressure on myself when I went to Boston and even when I went to the Mets that it wasn't anything. And no player wants to get booed. I don't care what anybody says. They don't want to get booed. But like, I just feel like some guys either they're soft and they can't handle it mentally or whatever. The media gets on them, and that I never understood, because if you just told a media person, like if they come up to you after a bad game and you tell them flat out, look, I was awful, I sucked. What are they going to say? Like you can't. I know there can only so many times you can use that, but if you just be honest and tell them exactly the truth about how you're playing, look, no one knows you're playing worse than you. Right, you get it, but then again, I was never a huge contract guy either. So like I get that part of it, and those guys athletes put a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect, and I think the people that have a hard time in big markets are the people who always spit out the everything is fine mantra, and it's like no, they don't want to hear it's fine. They want to hear like, look, man, I'm not sleeping tonight, and this is killing me. So you take their ammo and you put it on yourself, and like, yeah, you want to feel like everything's in control, but there's sometimes you're like, you know what? Look, man, I'm trying everything. It's just not working. But I know in my heart that I'll be there in the long run. But that's why I think guys put so much pressure on themselves to be someone they're not, or maybe more than what they think. That's the one thing Carlos Beltran always taught me. And my locker mate coming off the Mets, I think he signed that $200 or whatever $1 million contract with the Mets. I was like, and they're booing the crap out of him. They were expecting the Carlos Beltran of the 04 playoffs when he hit 8 home runs in like 11 games.
Where he was
like he might never do that again, and he knew that. He's like, I come to the park every day. I'm ready to play, and I'm going to play the best I can. I don't put too much into it. They were expecting someone that he wasn't. Like, not that he wasn't, but he was a phenomenal, great player. But like, I think sometimes too, fans think like, oh, because you're making $30 million, you're expected this. Well, the player got $30 million a year because of what he's already done to be who he is, not what he's going to do or going to be. So if you're just honest with yourself and with the people that you're playing for, I admit it. I went into ruts all the time, but the same thing. I always say this: the same thing that makes it hard makes it great. Like playing Yankee Stadium, you had 55,000 people every night. That was awesome. Like Boston, huge crowd every night. Like that's what makes you want to play in front of, because a lot of the guys that have actually played there a long time have never played in the Metrodome in '98 when you could hear somebody fart in the upper deck. Like they didn't have to bring their own energy. It's like that stuff. They want it until they see it, and then they come with every beautiful thing comes with like something that's not always so grand.
Right.
And you just got to be able to handle it.
Well, Doug, to tell you how nasty New York can be, I don't know if you remember a ball player by the name of Jorge Julio, who's a relief pitcher for the Orioles.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He got traded to the Mets. And on opening day, and I remember because I was watching I was watching a Met game on opening day that year. I don't remember what year it was, but they introduced him. Okay. He hadn't even thrown a pitch yet for the Mets. Okay. And when they introduced him, they booed the crap out of him. And his face was like, what the? I mean, he looked like a deer in headlights. It's like, what the hell is going on? And he's like shrugging his shoulders, like, I haven't even thrown a pitch yet, and they're booing the hell out of me. So that's why I'm saying we're kind of. I mean, like, I mean, Yankee fans are just as bad. I hate to admit it, but we're as bad as they are. I mean, we're all the same fans. We just root for different teams. That's all.
But you can't get mad at passion. You can't get mad at that's it's like Jeter always said. I can't tell a fan what to do. I can't tell you pay your money to come see a game. You're allowed to say pretty much whatever you want to. You may not like it, but it's not my job to tell you how to act or what to say. We don't want to be booed, but then go do something where you don't get booed at. But same thing. The Mets. I'll never forget this. Kaz Matsui was our second baseman. I think it was and they booed him opening day. I mean, booed the crap out of him because he had a bad year the year before.
Yeah,
he tied the game in the seventh. Yep, he tied the game in the seventh of the home opener, and then walked him off in the ninth with a hit. The next day they announced his name and they booed him again. I was like, my goodness gracious! I go, that's a tough crowd. But again, like I said, it's their right.
Well, they were on him. They were on him from the get-go. They, for whatever reason, they didn't want him on the team. I don't quite get it. With Julio, though, Julio never even played. I mean, Julio had just been acquired in a trade in the offseason. And all winter long, I can remember listening to WFAN, okay, and all the Met fans were complaining about Jorge Julio. Like, why did you get him? Who is he? And, all this other stuff. The guy hadn't even thrown a pitch yet for the Mets. And they're already – and those crazy fans who are so nasty just were all over him. I mean, I would say this, Yankee fans, at least we let you screw up before we give you a hard time. Like Aaron Hicks or Josh Donaldson, they were terrible, okay? And I hope Josh Donaldson comes back and shuts us all up. I really do. Because I think then you'll see the real him. Because he's very passionate. I think it'll rub off on the whole team. But
I just love the fact that you have fans that fans that know front office first and last names and the people that make their clubs. That's awesome. Like when you boo GMs, you're a fan. Like when you don't like people they're signing, that's I get it. Trust me. I've been on both sides of it, but.
Cashman got it.
Again,
Cashman
you can't get mad at
last year. Yeah, Cashman got it last year at Old Timers Day. and they booed the hell out of Hal Steinbrenner too.
So bad.
But can you tell when kind of goes to prospects as well. But when you come to camp, if you're on the Twins and they're bringing up, this guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's a shortstop out of Georgia. He's going to be great. Can you tell, man, this kid's got it. We got a good one in him, or do you kind of? Can you tell sometimes maybe you look at some of the other veterans and what are they saying in this kid?
I'll give you three examples. I mean, the main two examples were Justin Morneau and Joe Mauer. Morneau played first, obviously, and I was a rookie in '99, hitting barely my weight. And they brought this kid from Canada on draft day to take BP in the Metrodome. And he's launching balls into the upper deck. And I was going, let me think. Let's see, 2000, 2001, 2000. Give him 3 years. I'm going to have to either change positions or go find a new team because this kid's coming. And to that regard, Joe Mauer, we drafted, I forgot, 01 or 02, he was drafted first.
First overall, yeah.
And we brought him to camp, big league camp, and his first start in spring training was against Roy Halladay. Now, granted, Roy Halladay, rest in peace, best competitor in the history of the world. His spring training stuff was at a 2, and his season stuff was at a 10, which his 2 is still better than most guys' 9s, right? But he was out there working on stuff. And 18 years old, Joe Mauer gets up there and hits 3 rockets into left field, 5-6 hole. Boom. Stay on the ball. You think you're 18 years old, you're the first pick of the draft. I'm going to go deep, right? I'm going to hit a – he just shot 3 bullets to left field. And I remember going into Gardy's office, Ron Gardner, going, you got to get this kid out of here. He's like, wow, he's pretty good. And I go, yeah, but he's making us all look bad because he's staying on the ball. He go, his swing is beautiful. I said, he's making us all look bad. Can you get him out of here? Like, we're not anywhere close to that. And he's 18. So you knew with Joe's swing, you knew you're talking, you're talking 300 every single year. Morneau, you knew was going to be an MVP.
340 with 8 home runs. I think he was his staple with Mauer.
That was her thing. He didn't hit enough home runs. He doesn't hit any home runs. I'm like, well, and that was like, and to go the other way with it, I was complaining because they moved him to first, and I was like, y'all fired me for hitting less than 10 home runs a year. Yeah, I was, I hit 300. I didn't hit 340, but I hit 300 with 10 home runs. I'm like, you guys let me go because I didn't have any power. And now, Joe's a catcher playing first, hitting 300 with 8 home runs. So you can't have it both ways. But he was a hometown kid, and you want to talk about not pressure, but demand to do well. You draft a kid because trust me, in the time, that was 2002. We were pretty good, made the playoffs that year. We made a run to the ALCS, and Mark Pryor was in that draft. And we're like, please. And we all felt like the guys on the team felt like we were one arm away from winning the whole thing. A power arm, right? You go up against whoever, you throw 2002, you got Radke, Milton, Eric Milton, Joe Mays, Mark Pryor. It's a little bit different. And then the following year, you have Mark Pryor, Johan Santana, and Brad Radke, and Eric Milton. It changes things as the Twins. So, but I understand why they took him. He was he's.
So were you teammates with him you said you went to Florida State. So were you teammates with Joe at? No, he would be after you, right?
He never went. He went to he went to pro ball out of high school.
But
so I did play with him in 04. I played with him in 04 at the beginning of the year. He tore his meniscus, or he slid on the turf catching a pop-up foul, and he hurt his knee. So we only got maybe 6 games into that year before he got hurt. But I did play with him that year, and then got traded that offseason. That middle of that year in July to Boston.
Because he could have been the quarterback at Florida State.
Yes.
That's how good of an athlete he was. He could have been.
Yep. Joe was a super nice, super quiet, super just you almost you did you're too perfect. You don't ruffle any feathers. Yeah. You don't say anything. You're just always in a good mood. Of joke around you should be in a good mood because you're going to when you go to the plate every night, you're getting 3 hits a game. The game's awful fun that way. And then come play with this skill set and see how much fun you're having.
He never swung at the first pitch.
Ever.
Never. Now, look, I'm Mr. JV CYO baseball over here. I was okay. I was never anything great. But I always thought the first pitch was sometimes the best pitch you were going to get.
Well, you read that on Instagram? Some hitting guru that's on Instagram?
What? That the first pitch
is the best one?
No, is that not true?
That's what everybody says, but I took the first pitch all the time too. So it's I look at it this way. If you're this, I was the same hitter with no strikes as I was with 2 strikes. So why am I going to swing at the first pitch if it's something I don't like? Now, granted, you had we always say that you have your kryptonite, right? Kryptonite guys that have a split finger for me was a kryptonite. I couldn't take him. I couldn't hit him, and I couldn't take him. It was a really bad combination. So I just knew going in, I can't. I better be ready to hit the first. I got better as I got older, but early in my career, they rode me all the time by not swinging at the first pitch, and I knew it. But at the same token, that's just I felt like the longer my feet stay in the box, the better I become. So that was just kind of what I've always done, and I heard that my rookie year, and okay, well, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not just taking it to take. I overswung first pitch and hit a lot of pop-ups to the catcher. You're going to sit me if I do that. So, they crucified Joe for the same thing. He takes the first pitch every single time. But he hits 340.
You can't really.
340 is hard.
Can't really critique it if you're hitting 340.
But he had 1 year. I think in 1 year he had 20, whatever, maybe it was 30, 20-something homers. And again, they expected it every year. And so it's just because it happened once, just because you paid him to do something again. They got some fans, obviously, Joe Mauer can do no wrong in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, because he's from there and he's, blessed. He's one of the best athletes to ever come out of that state. But like even like some fans would get, he only hit 6 home runs. Well, he hit 20, whatever it was. That doesn't mean he's going to do it again. Like just because and that's the one thing I don't understand. It's like fans get so upset with people like, are you paying his salary like directly? No. So, well, I get it. Yes, you can say the ticket prices. I get that part of it. But like they make it sound like you're spending your hard-earned dollar to bring. I want more homers out of Joe Mauer. And it's like, well, Joe, you paid for Joe because Joe hits 340, and he's a great defender, and he's it is what it is. He's an all-star. Like,
yeah, his 2009 season, Doug, he hit a measly 365 with 28 home runs, 96 runs batted in, over 1,000 OPS.
And this is a catcher.
The catcher.
Those are Nintendo numbers. Like that's not even like you just read that and I remember it and it's like that's not, those aren't real. Like that's not real. That's something you do on a video game.
That's something Piazza used to do.
Yeah,
I mean, like I said, I always said there should be another level for those guys.
Piazza couldn't catch though. He was a terrible catcher.
Yeah, Joe won a gold
ran
glove
on
that
him
year too.
No, I mean, but to expect that every year, that's just not like. If he'd done that every year, he'd be the best catcher to ever put cleats on. It's hard to do consistently. The game is hard to be consistent in.
Yeah, especially if you're a catcher. That's
and like they always thought, well, we'll move him to first. I'm like, well, it's a different position. It's because I was in the Twin system when that was going on, and I was like, and they're all like, well, we're trying to save his legs and make him a better hitter. Just worry about his hitting. I go, you ever thought he's a great hitter because he is a catcher? They looked at it the other way. It's like, well, now you're creating anxiety because he's playing another position. That again, you just can't stick anybody at first base. I mean,
no.
Granted, I don't think it's a difficult position by any stretch of the imagination, but I always say this: no one notices a good one. Everybody sees a bad one. Right? And it's just the reality of it. So like they were like, well, he's going to hit 400 if he plays first. I'm like, or he's going to hit 250. And then what? You're going to hit 280 with 6 homers, and you're going to want, because now he plays first. Now you're expecting 40 home runs and 390. Like that's not real. That's not realistic.
Doug, I got a good example for you. What about remember the Yankees went late in his career moved Mickey Mantle to first base. And I was a little kid then, but he couldn't catch a pop-up to save his life. And he couldn't catch ground balls. I mean, he really couldn't play the position. And they were trying to save his legs so he could still hit. And he ended up ending up hitting like 238 in his last year playing first base. It was kind of ridiculous. It's not that easy a position to play. There's a lot of stuff. I played a little first base. I played a little first base myself, and it's not so easy. I mean, first of all, if you're playing deep, you got to beat the runner to first base, okay, and then be in position to catch the ball, right, and not get run over.
A lot can happen over there. A lot can happen fast.
Yeah, and you could have a situation where somebody is burning the ball at you, an infielder's burning the ball at you. And the runner and you're it's a bad throw and you have to step back to catch it, and the runner's kind of screening you so you can't see the ball. Mm-hmm. So you have like a 2-second window there where the fear of getting maybe hit in the face or whatever is real. So people who make like first bases, I kind of remember that, and that was pretty scary.
I said it's not, but again, anything that's foreign to us is different, right? And it causes, it's like if there's a lot of shortstops that don't want to play, can't play second because they have their back to the runner, and it's you moving 20 feet to the right or left. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm sure if you played second, you played short, but a lot of shortstops don't like playing second. So it's anything is different, and anytime you change, and what are always people talk about, successful people are creatures of habit, right? They whether you're a business guy or a CEO or if you're good at what you do, you do things consistently. Well, if you change that, you change what they do, you cause some like lack of a better term, because it's everybody talks about mental health, but you create anxiety You create panic, and that's whether you like it or not. That's what happens.
Ryan Swoop, we touched on it last week. My memory serves me correct. You do not like the pitch clock and some of the new rules.
I'm not. It's not that I don't like the pitch clock. It's the fact that they're changing the game, and I don't understand. And I get it. Maybe regular season. We talked about this last week. I'm curious to see how it works in the postseason. Like if they add 3 seconds to it, do they add 5 seconds to it? Here's something: if you don't want to watch a game till midnight, don't start the damn playoff game at 8:30. Right? Like start. I ain't the smartest person in the world, but don't start it at 9, and it won't be played till 1. I get it with different wherever I get it might be in LA, whatever, but I'm just curious to see what happens in the postseason. I mean, if it speeds games up, like if it speeds up the Tigers A's game, I'm all for it. Like I don't want to watch that, but like you watching game 6 or like this game tonight, game 7, like of a baseball game, that part of what's going on is part of the drama, right? That's what sports create. I just think there's got to be some wiggle room, and I understand you can't bend the rules for certain things, but when one guy's getting a strike, the hitter's getting a strike called on him, and then he gets back in the box, and then before he throws a pitch, the umpire's calling a ball already. And it's like it's 1-1, and we haven't thrown a pitch yet. So are we really saving time? Like the argument from both sides is longer than it would have taken if you just would have gave each guy time to throw the pitch, if that makes sense. If I said that clearly enough, you're gaining more time throwing the pitch with each guy ready to throw it and hit it than you are by both managers arguing over the call and the play. Then what's really faster?
Doug, I've noticed a lot of situations where it seems like a lot of, and I never noticed it as much as I have this year, where pitchers are really having trouble getting through 5 innings. Like a lot of pitchers seem to be getting pulled at 4 2/3 innings and 4 1/3 innings. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're pitching at such a fast rate and they've never done it in their career that they're getting tired out.
It's an epidemic, though.
Really,
because the minor leagues, everything's 100 pitches, right? 90 pitches, 100 pitches, whatever.
Right.
You're creating, like, you dog pees on the rug. What do? You discipline them, right? And they do the same thing. You do the same thing every day. The dog should stop peeing on the rug. But the point is, like, you discipline something to only run this far, they're going to run this far. That's probably a bad analogy. More than likely it was. But my point is, like, I saw that as a minor league manager. It's like you're going to want them to go 7 in the big leagues, but you're only allowing them to go 95 every start in the minor leagues. So you're creating someone who's looking to go 5 innings. And maybe you're right. I never thought about it that way. It's a great point. You're making them work faster. So maybe because again, pitchers don't like change. The whole, they change the ball, right? They change the ball.
Right.
No sticky stuff. Everybody's complaining about injury. Like it just, good or bad, players don't like change. You're used to doing something. You form a routine. Now you're messing with what makes them good. And some really don't like it. Some have a hard time with it. And some, it's just everything. You're changing what these guys have done their whole life to be successful. And now, but it's been an epidemic for a while now. The days of the guys going like, hey, I want to finish what I start are over with, because we got in the minor leagues, they make them work on pitches, and you got to throw 15% changeup, 10% changeup, 18% slider, and 50 whatever it is fastball. It's like, but where do we teach them how to get hitters out? If their fastball's working tonight, why don't we use it more than we would normally? And then you look up and they have 95 pitches and now they're coming out of the game. So you never really teach them how to get out of a jam. You never really teach them and tell them what their eyes tell them, what they feeling it tonight. If their fastball's good, let's dominate with it. Let's use it. Be aggressive with it. We're teaching them to let's trick people. I'm getting my work in. Oh, wait, but there's a game going on. And I think that, along with changing of the timing in between pitches, is definitely doing, because everybody believes in the next guy in the pens is a better option than the guy that's already out there.
Aren't the standards?
Do you not think though that they're getting tired, that pitching faster, like cutting down on the time between pitches is is making them tired. And I think the last couple of games Garrett Cole pitched, I mean, he's been getting tired in the 6th inning.
He's a power guy, though.
Right. Yeah, I know that, but
I don't know enough about Garrett Cole, like as far as watching. I obviously watched him pitch, but like I've never really paid attention to his pace. I mean, was he always a slow down? Like Roger Clemens, there's no way he could live with this pitch clock. Like Roger would work fast and then get guys on base, and he would try to slow momentum down, right? That's the whole idea. Guys get on base, your offense is creating momentum. He was notorious for slowing it down. Like what happens when you're lost when you're driving? We talked about this last week. When you get lost driving and you make a wrong turn, you drive twice as fast going back the other way, right?
Right.
Whenever you're in trouble, like everybody's motto is slow down, take your time. Well, now you've just saying you don't do that. Keep doing the same thing, but just do it faster, and everything's going to work. Like it doesn't work that way.
Well,
like,
the only guy I can remember who pitched like he was double parked was David Wells. I mean, when he got the ball, he literally was when he caught the ball, he was literally ready to throw the next pitch. And I remember a lot of players used to get mad at him that he was quick pitching, and and he probably liked that because he does kind of like to get under people's skin. That was part of his game for sure. But I think too. Huh?
It was faster to the bar.
Yeah.
After the game.
Yeah, I mean, he pitched. He did.
David Wells.
He pitched like he was double parked, and when he was a Yankee, he was one of my favorite all time players. He really was. But he used to pitch fast all the time, and it never seemed to bother him. But like, could you imagine who was it? Melito Perez's brother? No, Levon Hernandez. Can you imagine if they made him pitch fast? Remember him? I mean, he was like a human rain delay.
That's what I mean. Like, there's like that's what made guys different, right? Like, we tell our guys, go get the ball, go get the ball, go get the ball, go. But when you need to back off a minute, that's the part I'm talking about with the pitch clock. Like, yeah, we all like every coach loves or want if you're a defensive player and you're on defense, you want your pitcher to work fast, right? Because the game's faster and you're more into it. But like if you just keep throwing it all over the place, you're going to have to slow it down at some point. So that's what I mean. You're changing some things where some guys feed off that. Some guys use that to their advantage, step off the mound. Steve Traxel, he'd step off 50 times. It's like throw over, split. And he wanted you to get anxious. He chased a split finger. And I did it religiously every single time I saw him. I couldn't stand facing him because of it. So, but that's just that you're messing with the part of the game that not everybody is the same. Not everybody likes to work within how many seconds it is.
Yeah, I just think it's I think it's bothered a lot of guys this year who are having trouble adjusting to it. I don't know that it's necessarily so wonderful for the game. I just don't get it. I love baseball, and I don't care if I'm watching a 2-hour and 40-minute game or a 3-hour game. I really couldn't care less, to be honest with you. I think most baseball fans who really like the game don't really care. It's part of the game.
I agree.
I kind of like a little bit more time in between pitches because then I'm sitting there. I try to figure out. Okay, I'm always thinking like a hitter, even though I wasn't a very good hitter, but you try. Okay, so he's gonna throw a fastball now, probably inside, and then I'd see where the catcher's going, and I was like, okay, so I guessed right. I couldn't hit. I mean, personally, I couldn't hit it, but. I always enjoy that strategy, sitting there trying to figure out where he's going and how he's setting the pitches up. And a lot of times, like if you go on Google, like on the internet, okay, and you watch pitch by pitch, they have a picture of home plate and where the balls are being pitched. You can see exactly how the pitcher's pitching them and what spots they're going in. You can really see where they're going and what's going to happen because you can almost predict. Okay, he's thrown 4 balls that have gone right to the low and outside. Isn't it time for up and in? And I kind of like that. And now you don't get that anymore because it's so fast now that you can't really sit there and analyze that. I think a lot of guys enjoy doing that.
I mean, it's funny you said that. I was just thinking that when you mentioned it. Like you said you watch a game as a hitter, like thinking about what a hitter would get. Like I would be like, it's funny playing. You might be watching a game that you face the guy the next week and you want to see how he worked with some left-handed hitters or whatever. and you always think the same thing. And like it's funny, when I became a minor league manager, you start managing the game when you're watching it, and so like that type stuff is, and like that's a whole different element being in it, and like that's another thing too. You're making the game faster, so decisions have to be made faster. You got to think about things even faster than you did before, because everybody thinks that baseball is slow, but if you're running a game and a game that means something, it's flying. Like the first 3 innings, you're kind of super chill, but come inning 4, like you're starting to understand and map out how many starters, how many pitches my starter have. Okay, who's available tonight? I have this matchup, that matchup. How's the lineup coming down? How are we doing? Do I feel like we're offensively? Can we score tonight? Are our bats looking good? Who do they have available? How do our bats match up against that guy? So you're starting to think all this stuff, and now you're putting a time clock on it. So, in my opinion, the major league managers, for the most part, like obviously, you can't even say major league manager anymore because you don't know who's being allowed to manage the game and who's not, as far as front offices go. But like you watch some of the playoff games and everybody's the head scratchers, right? The Blake Snell, you take Blake Snell out. Why? Well, because the front office said, this, and this. They removed the human element from it, and it cost them a world championship.
Rob and I were killing Tampa Bay over that.
And it's like, but now you're making everybody, including the players and the managers too. Now you're going to have to start making decisions faster because time's clicking away.
You can't even challenge though now.
Right, but that pitch clock gets up there. You can't stall to get somebody loose.
No.
So you have to think sooner and earlier, and it's. I mean, the fact that I managed against Schneider in the A-ball, and when he went to the mound the second time, like how does that happen in the major league level? Like how does that happen? If you guys didn't know what I'm talking about, but he went to the mound to just talk to his pitcher, and he forgot his pitching coach went out to the mound and they had to take their ace out. Thank God they had a guy warm, and the guy warmed up already. But like that, huh? Like how do you not know if your pitching coach went out there managing a Major League Baseball game?
Yeah, that's bad.
It's horrible.
That's bad.
Real quick before we get into more baseball stuff, let's hear a quick message from our friends at Philly Sports Trips.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
There they are, Philly Sports Trips, premium Philadelphia 5 for 5 travel experiences, 4 Eagles trips. They've had a couple Phillies trips, a few more to come. Check them out. Tell them A2D Radio sent you. We were mentioning the Rays. They just do things differently down there. It works out for them. Like, how do you handicap a team like the Rays who just march to the beat of their own drum? I think they're frauds because
they break. Like I can't even talk. Managing against them in the minor leagues at the AAA level, they bend a lot of rules.
What do you mean by that?
They have a lot of dudes on their AAA roster that aren't on a roster. They make a lot of, at least when I was there, they made a lot. I'll never forget this. Every time you walk into a city, you get, and in AAA is harder because you have so many moves, right? Your pitching matchups, whatever. And I got a list from the Durham Bulls because usually you send a guy in from the front office and they send you they hand you the stat packet and probables. And they had a guy starting to start their game on their game 3 of this series, and he wasn't on the roster. And I was like, we can't find this guy. Who is this? And he's on our temporary roster. And I'm like, oh. I forgot.
Temporary roster?
Temporary, temporary, or it There's another word. He's on our auxiliary roster. And I'm like, and my pitching coach goes, can we get a copy of that auxiliary roster? He's like, sure, no problem. So he obviously was an intern, and he just got there, and he was just trying to be right. Well, they don't have him on that roster. So you're only allowed so many players. So the idea is, like, that's why managing the AAA is so hard, because you're getting calls to you can't use Bobby and Billy tonight because we might be one short. We might need to call one of them up. Well, now you take a bullpen down from 6 guys to 4, and 3 you used last night. Now you only have 1. Well, if you do the same thing that the big leagues does, where they send you send them a fresh guy, and they send you the guy that has to sit for 3 days because he just threw 68 pitches and he needs to rest. So now you're screwed. Well, in AAA, the same thing happens there. Well, it just moves on down. Well, if you have guys on your auxiliary roster, they take the guy who threw last night and they give you the fresh guy. And I'll never forget this. I was on the phone outside at Durham, and I watched, like, literally, I counted something like 48 players on the field at one time. It wasn't a camp. Right. It wasn't the Durham Bulls youth camp. They had the field split in 5 different sections, and they all had Durham shit on. And I'm like, we're only allowed 25 players. Why and how in God's green earth are you doing that? So that's just getting along involved. So I truly believe that they trust me. Don't get me wrong. They do their things their own way. They've hit lightning in a bottle a million times. They draft great arms. They're very well coached. They're very, like, their organization, they have a system and they draft into that system and they keep the system going. But they do get away with doing some stuff that's, like, not truly legal at certain levels. And they have their own, and trust me, when I played for the Yankees, Steinbrenner couldn't stand them. Like he would, like, trust me, like, when we played them when they were still in St. Pete and we played them in spring training, he sent the 8 squad because he didn't get, me and everybody else. They sent Alex and Derek, and, like, he didn't want to lose to them in a checkers game, let alone a baseball game. So
it was the Mets treatment.
He sent. Oh yeah, there was no, like, you're playing today, whether it's February 28th, March 28th, or September 28th. You guys are playing.
That's so George. He used to do that. I mean, he got so competitive in spring training games that the Mets just said, you know what? We're not playing you guys anymore in straight. Yeah, it's enough already. We can't be having World Series in March.
But that's funny you say that, because I played for the Mets in 2005, and Willie Randolph was our manager. And I'll never forget this. First game of the year, first game of spring, we go to Washington, which is like in Brevard. So it wasn't exactly super far, but it was like a 3, maybe 2.5 hour bus trip. We took 2 buses. And I played 8 innings. And I remember this, like, I got 5 at bats. And Andres Galarraga was, like, the other first baseman who might be a right-handed threat off the bench, right? But he's got, 18 years in the big leagues, best 300 homers, whatever it was. Like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, why am I playing Andres Galarraga? I don't care if Andres is 45 years old. He's better than I am. And I remember hearing this. Willie pinch hit him in the 9th inning. And I was like, you just made Andres Galarraga go take a bus trip to pinch hit in the 9th inning of the first game of spring training. Well, that's why, because Willie learned under that regime. And I was, like, dumbfounded. I remember looking at Carlos Beltran, like, middle of March going, are you tired? And, Carlos was like, I'm exhausted. Like, look it up. He got a shit ton of at-bats that spring. It was like their new shiny toy. They wanted to take him everywhere. Like, oh, look at this guy. That's Carlos Beltran. He's got a Mets jersey on. But it's funny you say that, because that's exactly how Willie was. Willie was, you guys are playing a lot in spring training. And we don't care. That's what we're doing. We're winning every game. I was like, all right. I didn't know.
No, that's. I mean, if you're a fan long enough, you know what they're doing. You could see that if they played the Red Sox, Jeter was playing, and and O'Neill was playing, and all those guys. It didn't matter. Those guys, Bernie Williams was playing. They were all going to play those games. Even if it was like, even if it was a split squad, the entire good squad would be playing the Red Sox, and the bad squad would be playing Detroit.
Whoever, right? But I mean, getting back to the Rays, like I will say this: they made me a better manager. They made me a better manager because we always played them in the playoffs. And Brady Williams, Jimmy Williams' son, was the manager for the other manager for the Rays for a long time in their system. And we had some really good battles, and I learned a lot by. You had to be on point. You couldn't take a pitch off against them. And like I said, I learned a lot about the game and doing things that they did and throwing it back in their face and learning how to beat and like kind of defend what they do. So they were definitely probably the number one reason why. I was fortunate enough to win 2 championships in minor league ball as a manager. And they were a big reason why, because of it, because they made me elevate what I was doing and how I prepared my guys for sure.
Well, Doug, when you were talking before about moving pitchers up and down, when they got called up to pitch in the big leagues. Okay, I mean, wouldn't they do the same thing like AAA would steal players from AA?
No. Like, AAA is like the land of misfit toys. At least in Detroit, like. The Tigers would take 3 guys from me in AAA, and then I'd get some dude from A-ball. Because at the time, that all the quote prospects, which I get, and with the Tiger system was in the rotation at Erie, which was AA. That makes sense. If they're your guys, you leave them together. I was always a firm believer in that. Like you guys, if this is their next wave, you guys keep them together. And you let them win together as a pitching staff. I was totally okay with that. But like relievers, you keep giving me this and that. It's like, or you don't get anything, and you're like, and of course that's the crazy dynamic of minor league baseball as a manager is because you have some of these places in AAA, like Toledo Mudhens, they want to win. Like the Mudhens people expect you to win. They obviously more fans want to win, and in Toledo they love their Mudhens. And trust me, I want to win too. I don't want to ever manage something I'm going to lose at. But you're trying to manage a game, looking at it going, I'm going to have to get booed off the field today because I've got to leave the starter out as long as I can, regardless of the score, because I don't have another option. And if we don't get this from this guy, there's only so many cookies left in the jar. And before the jar's empty, and then we're pitching a position player. So I said, managing AAA is not about winning; it's about surviving. You don't try to win games.
The Heat and the Celtics are underway. It was 9-6. 11-8.
By the way, Rob, the hockey game.
11-11.
Just completed the first period.
Yeah,
the Knights are ahead 3-0.
Now that's a closeout game for Vegas, right?
Yeah, that's a very disappointing effort for Dallas in the first period.
Well, I love Florida.
Yeah, well, Florida. I
watched a couple of their games against the Hurricanes, and that Matthew Tkachuk is unbelievable. I don't know how much you've been watching the Stanley Cup playoffs or
not. Panthers.
Yeah. Oh, Matthew Tkachuk is great.
Florida. Doug.
He's always been a real good player. Now he's getting his deserved publicity.
I need to follow them more.
Yeah, Verhaeghe is really good too. He's another player that's a great player. Carl Verhaeghe.
And then of course they have former Flyers goalie Sergei Bobrovsky.
That's killing him, Doug.
They're taking.
Every time, like you trade him for he's this guy. He's supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. They tell you that the whole time, and then they trade him for who was it?
Steve Mason.
Yeah, they swap backup goalies for a guy named Steve Mason. I mean, they have Carter Hart now, but I don't know.
Yeah, but Bobrovsky
I just don't get it.
Bobrovsky is right. Bobrovsky right now is playing. He reminds me a lot of like Hobby Bolin was that one year when they who was it that won the Stanley Cup with him in goal?
Was he the Capitals?
What happened with the Capitals?
I mean, he was old. I mean, he was like late 90s, wasn't he? Javi Bullen?
Oh, Bobby Bolin, yeah, he was, but he
No,
he
the
played-
Capitals had Olaf Kolzig
yeah, only the goalie. Mm-hmm.
and Peter Bondra. Peter Bondra was sick in NHL 97.
Peter Bondra used to kill the Rangers.
I think Peter Bondra killed everyone, Brad.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think
that guy.
I don't think he discriminated too much. That guy killed everybody.
That guy used to drive us crazy. I think he played with our old buddy Dennis Maruk. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so we had Dennis Maruk on one time, and as soon as we talk a little bit about, we mentioned Madison Square Garden, he had to remind me of a game where I think the Capitals were down, where the Capitals beat the Rangers 5-3, and he scored 4 of the goals. And of course, I didn't remember the game. I was like, he's just blowing smoke to be obnoxious. So I look it up, and there it is. He scored 4 goals that game.
We only remember good stats.
Yeah.
Doug, so your Heat, they're up 16-11 here in the early going. Like,
That's huge.
The Heat came in. The Heat came into this thing as underdogs. Nobody, including myself, I thought Boston was way better and was just going to blow right through them. I thought the Cinderella, but now it's the Heat were up 3-0, so like they're kind of blowing it here. They're up here in Game 7. Where's the pressure tonight? Is it on the Celtics because they were favored, or is there less pressure on the Celtics because they were down 3-0 and no one expected them to kind of fight back like this? It's hard to win 4 playoff games.
I think it's back on the Celtics. I do, because I mean, like, I'm looking at this thing right now. They were 32-9 at home this year. Like, then they've lost what? They were like 7-6 in their last 13 playoff games at home. I think I saw that or heard that the last 2 years. That's just unheard of. I think all the pressure was on Miami in Game 6. I think now, if there's one team that can withstand coming back from down 4-0 or 3-0, it's the Heat from being told that they lost the series. In the sense of
that's true.
They walked through. They beat the number 1 seed. They shouldn't have beat, right? Then they get the Knicks, right? So it's like they have injuries. Because I thought legitimately had a shot against Milwaukee. I feel like no matter how good Milwaukee is, the Heat have their kryptonite. When we lost Tyler Hero, I'm like, that's all she wrote. And then we lost Oladipo, and I was like, I'm sorry, we got no shot. And then up 3-0. You're like, I thought when they won Game 1 in Boston, I wasn't surprised. When they won Game 2 in Boston, I was like, that's a big one. Okay, now they got my attention. Well, I think now, then they went up 3-0, and all of a sudden you got Vincent on with Shaq and Charles Barkley, and it's like maybe they start to believe their own press clippings a little bit. Maybe they're losing their toehold because I thought Game 4 they kind of they weren't themselves. Game 5 they kind of, to me, didn't have the same like tenacity they normally do, which I understand. You have freedom and they're in Boston and da-da-da-da. It just didn't have the same snarl. Well, you forget if they win this one. You wipe out the 3 games they lost if you win this one because they're still an underdog. Boston still is a better team. Boston shouldn't even be in this position, but they are. I think the pressure's on Boston now. You're at home, and you have a chance to cap off something that's never been done before in the NBA history.
What about in 2004 when you were on the Red Sox? Was there going into that Game 7? Obviously, it went pretty well for you. It started off good. The middle was good, and the end was good too. But, like, first off, that 2004 team, probably the loosest team maybe ever.
Without question. Without doubt. But people forget, though, there wasn't a single doubt in my mind we were losing Game 7. Not one. There was no, like, anxiety, no, like.
Right.
But people forget that first inning, Manny gets a hit and Johnny gets thrown out at home. And you're thinking, like, okay, here we go, right? We're going to be up 1-0. Oh, Johnny got thrown out at home. Is that our bubble bursting? Like, uh-oh. I think everybody in the bench was like, and then 2 pitches later, David hits one in the seats. We're like, oh, never mind, we're good. Like, we got it. Like, we're good. But, like, without David's home run in that first inning, you never know. So there was a shot where it was like, that was kind of like, oh, God, please. I looked at Dave Roberts on the bench going, is that hopefully that's not the momentum swing that is what kills us in the first inning. And then, boom, David hits the home run. And I looked at Dave Roberts and he goes, we're good. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we're good now. Like, I feel better.
Yeah,
But there was that moment where we're like, uh-oh.
Johnny Damon went and hit that grand slam, too, which
yeah. I mean, yeah. And obviously, Johnny coming up huge with both homers. And it's obviously then the route was on. But, that first inning, you don't know. Like I said, you don't know. You don't. Baseball's just like any game 7, you never know. Like, it doesn't, that.
Now, here's a question for you, because regarding that series, because there was something that I could never understand. Did you personally face El Duque in that series?
No. I wish I did.
I cannot for the life of me understand why Kevin Brown started Game 7 and why they did not use Hernandez.
If I'm not mistaken, I thought I could be wrong.
And when Kevin got in trouble, I couldn't understand why. I think they brought in
Javi Vasquez.
Yeah, they brought in Javi Vasquez, who stunk from the second he walked into.
Which I don't understand that, because I thought he was one of the nastiest guys I ever faced. Like, every time I faced him, he must have been absolutely lights out, because I was like, he's one of those guys, if I faced him 10 times, I don't think I'd get a hit. Like, I just don't. I didn't. And then, but like watching his stuff from the side was like, that's not I never saw the Yankee Javi Vasquez. I always saw the other guy who was like one guy in Montreal, just dominate with 18 pitches and just filthy.
Yeah, the guy on Montreal. You saw the guy on Montreal. You didn't see the guy who played for the Yankees. The guy who pitched for the Yankees couldn't get anybody out.
It blows my mind. Yeah,
and Kevin Brown, you could see Kevin Brown didn't have it. I could not for the life of me understand why Javi Vasquez, why not Orlando Hernandez, who basically, every time he pitched in a playoff game was unhittable. Whether he came out of the bullpen or whether he started games, and I don't know.
It goes back to there's the velo thing. Everybody wants that velo and see velo in the postseason. But there's El Duque, who didn't really have. Yeah, he didn't throw soft, but he didn't throw like. When you think El Duque, you didn't think fastball.
No.
And he just backed off the throttle, spin this, backdoor slider, backdoor cutter, changeup, elevated fastball, different arm angle. And it's like.
He was like David Cohn.
If you took one pitch off of El Duque at bat, he got you.
Yeah. He was a lot like David Cohn. He'd go out there and invent pitches when he was out there to get you
David
out.
Cohn back in the Mets days was filthy.
Well, no, when he was with the Yankees, he didn't have a great fastball, so he used to.
No,
not anymore.
God, what was he? He had to be up there in age, because I saw him with the Yankees and the Red Sox, so that was 99,
something like that. Yeah,
99.
He was near the
last year with the Yankees.
Yeah, he was near the end. 1999.
Then he went to Boston after that.
Yeah, 2000. Yeah, 2000. He won 4 and lost like 16 or something like that. He had a horrible season, and then he went to Boston.
I think in 01, right?
Yeah, and he almost pitched a no-hitter against them too. He and Mussina were pitching double no-hitters on a Sunday night game, and then he gave up a couple of runs, and then Carl Everett broke up Mussina's perfect game, and then started acting like.
I remember watching that game.
Yeah, and then for some reason, in his next at bat, he started acting like a total whack job, and after that, Boston was trying to get rid of him.
Happens.
So,
they get rid of all those whack jobs. They get rid of all of us whack jobs.
I mean,
no, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about him. By the way, I just saw you on TV about 4 or 5 times tonight with the pregame show on TNT. They had an interview with Pedro Martinez.
I didn't watch it.
Okay, well, you were on. Your jersey was on. I saw your jersey with your name on it on at least 3 times. Okay, you were jumping on somebody after you guys won that game, Game 7. They because you were either playing. I think you were playing first base because I think you had your mitt on when you jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they
Yeah.
showed that, and
Not very high either.
No, I don't recall that. I don't recall seeing the picture. Now they're showing stuff again. But yeah, they had a Pedro Martinez interview, and they're showing pictures of Pedro in that series, and you were in some of those pictures, so you were on TV tonight. Just to let you know.
Sorry, I feel sorry for everybody's America's viewing having to watch that from 2004.
Yeah, well, yeah, they have to. Yeah, I mean, they have to bring that. They had to bring that up, of course. I mean,
I found it funny. This is a true story. The Heat were up 3-0. It was Game 4. And if you watch the game, which obviously you guys said you didn't watch the whole thing, but they flashed who was in the stands for the Heat game, and they showed A-Rod, and they showed Jeter, and I was like, I looked at my girlfriend. I said, I don't really know if I really want that Heat fans should be too ecstatic about them showing Jeter and Alex up 3-0 in an Eastern Conference final. And I said,
doesn't Alex own the Grizzlies or something now?
He owns part of the Timberwolves.
The Timberwolves, okay.
But I'm like, I don't think you want to show two Yankee players from a team that you want to win that's up 3-0 right now. And I go, and it's going to be the curse of A-Rod strikes again, baby. Because I said, if Boston comes back and pulls this off, I actually posted something on Facebook. I go, I don't know if I really would show two Yankees right now. I think Heat fans should be too ecstatic about seeing two Yankees with their team up 3-0. And by the way, the Heat haven't won a game, so they showed them in the stands.
Well, by the way, the Heat are now up by 10, just to let you know.
12.
12? Okay.
It's a long way to go. It's all about runs. I'll rest assured when we're up 40 at the end of the third quarter. How's that?
Yeah.
But I mean, A-Rod.
Until then,
he was such a goof in that 04 series. Was that the same series where he was running down the first baseline and he tried to bat the thing out of the glove and he stands on first?
He played his ass off up until that point. Like the 19-8 game, I might be wrong, but I feel like the whole team hit a homer. The bat boy hit a homer. I felt like Zimmer hit a homer and he wasn't even there. Like everybody on the Yankees hit a home run in that Game 3, but they all were rolling.
And the worst thing that could have happened.
And I will say this: he bailed me out.
That was the worst thing that could have happened.
He bailed me out of that play.
Yeah, because when they won that game like that, I think they became overconfident and complacent.
I don't know. I don't think anyone gets overconfident when you're on a team with the captain. There's too much. Like Derek doesn't let you do that. Like, and I know he's only one person, but and that's. I just don't feel like they got because they didn't not like they played bad. They didn't have one game where like they fell apart until game 7. And even game 7. But even in game 7, we bring Pedro in and we're a 3-run homer away from making it a game again.
Yeah, well, So they brought in game 7. They brought in Pedro, and they brought in Pedro, and the fans started the "Who's your daddy" stuff, and then Pedro started pitching like garbage, and the Yankees started scoring runs, and you're sitting there saying, "Oh boy, how did this just happen?"
But that's my point. You blink and it changes.
Yeah.
Now wait, I'm just thinking about this now. Was that your glove?
Alex bailed me out of that play.
That was your glove. He swatted it out of, or tried to swat it out.
That was Bronson Arroyo's glove. Because that's a play. That's a play you work on every single day in spring training.
Right.
I got it. You take it with the pitcher. Well, when there's 60,000 people in the stands, you ain't gonna hear what he's saying. And Bronson did it right. I screwed that play up. Like I didn't hear him. As a first baseman, you're taught go get the ball. No matter what, go get the ball. and I saw Bronson go to field it, and I got stuck in no man's land. And if Alex just keeps running, he bumps into me, and he's safe. And I'll never forget, like, he stuck his hand out and smacked the ball away. And I remember, like, chasing the ball down on the right field line. I was chasing that. Randy Marsh was umpiring first base, and I was kind of giggling. I was like, Randy, did you just – I go, please tell me you saw that. And he's like, Doug, you blocked me. I couldn't see it. And I went from, like, giggling to, like, holy shit. Like, this isn't going to end. It's not going to end well. Like, no one saw this. And Joe West was on the field too. And I was like, Joe, like, tell me you saw that. Please, God, tell me you saw that. And he kind of looked at me and went, like, stay over there. Because I was about to go off. I was like, are you shitting me? Like, you can't just, like, what, we're playing hockey now? Like, we can just stick check somebody? Like, and finally, like, Joe West, after he called him out, and he came back over to first, he goes like, Doug, I just wanted to get you guys in the middle of the field together. That way, when they start throwing bottles of whiskey from the upper deck, no one gets hit in the head with a bottle. And I was like, good point. That's why you've been doing this longer than I have. Because you thought about that, and I didn't. Because I was freaking out. Because I was like, my immediate reaction was giggling. Like, holy shit, did you just see that? And Randy Marsh goes, Doug, I didn't see it. You blocked me out. And I was like, oh, this ain't a joke anymore. Like, that's second and third. Here we go. Oh, shit, I just screwed up everything.
But that's how the rivalry went before that, though. That's how the rivalry went before those two teams. Like, all those little things that all of a sudden, for a 4-game stretch in October, started going the Red Sox way instead of the Yankees way.
Yeah, for the first time
Correct.
in 80 years.
I go back to Tony Clark's ground rule double. Tony Clark's ground rule double.
Yep.
Like, that ball rolled on that little ass fence, what seemed like for an eternity.
Yeah, if that ball didn't,
if that thing stays in play,
if that didn't bounce in, they would.
If that thing stays in play, we lose.
Yeah.
Yep. If that thing stays in play, we lose.
But that's
Miguel
baseball.
Pardo scored probably standing up. That ball, it's not even close.
Yeah, that's baseball. That's what happens.
Oh, yeah. That happens.
I did want to ask you about the Baltimore Orioles, and they have a young kid named Grayson Rodriguez, hot shot prospect. Started in the minors, came up rather quick, pitching like dog shit, like just not getting it done. They send him back down. What do you say? Like, what's the strategy with a hot shot prospect that maybe is going to bloom a little later in his career and isn't going to be the 20-year-old Ronald Acuna, Wander Franco prodigy kind of guy?
Well, it depends. I mean, if it's a pitcher or a position player, you just you set him down. You kind of like, as a AAA guy, as a AAA manager, you're just like, okay, you're going back. Okay, you got a taste of it. Now we got to work on it, right? And it's not usually, a lot of times it's not stuff. It's not a swing. It's everything between the ears, and it's more of like whether it's some guys have mechanical flaws. Some guys have something where they see that, like a pitcher, you might see the ball too much of it. They want to work on something, but like for the most part, it's just between the ears. And I would always ask him, okay, like, do you think, if you're honest with yourself, did you play the way you played to get to the big leagues while you were there? And I make them answer that, like, because it's hard. You can't. You don't know what they're going to do when they get there. Anxiety, right? Like pressure, whatever they want to call it. It's faster. It's a different game. You make a mistake, you get pounded. Well, okay. And then you just your skin gets thicker when you go down. And then sometimes it's just, okay, pick your back up on your feet. And here we go. Get back to dominating. All right. Because some guys, it takes a while. When you get beat up, it's like watching someone, when Mike Tyson knocked somebody out in his prime. Like, they were in the days for weeks. Like, Tyson would hit him 3 times and they'd be like, just like they saw a ghost. And it happens. And it's nothing against them. It's just human nature. And sometimes I swear they call people up to that to actually happen because they're having a hard time Because some coaches and some organizations, they see flaws before they get there. And until they see failure with their own eyes, they're not going to change. Well, here you go. Do you think if you do that again, you can have success if we don't change something? And sometimes they change things just because they think they need to when it was all between their ears in the first place.
Interesting.
It's like you guys watch football.
Yeah.
There's some 6th-round guys that come in with a chip on their shoulders and they start for anybody. And there's first-rounders who can't get in the rotation because they've never been told the truth. They've always been told how great they are. Well, you get some NFL coach who's been around it, and you're getting dominated every day in practice.
I think that's the number one reason why we have busts is because these guys, if you have like a Jalen Carter, who was the first round 10th, 9th pick, whatever he was for the Eagles, he was probably the best kid on his Pee Wee team,
100%,
best kid on his middle school team, best kid on his high school, top recruit, and then won back-to-back national championships at Georgia. If he goes in the first day of training camp and Lane Johnson or Jordan Mailata or Landon Dickerson, one of the Eagles' big hosses on the best offensive line in the league, knocks him on his ass a couple times, is he going to curl up or is he going to have fire and fight back and be better?
For sure. And that's where, it goes back to that's why I think leadership is huge, because they're trying to, especially in football, they're testing those guys on purpose. They want to see, they might do some scheme stuff to actually get under his skin to see are you a dog, or are you gonna bark back? Are you gonna bite back? Or are you gonna the Eagles? You guys were one play away from winning the Super Bowl, and they actually got better, right? They're deeper. They got better, in my opinion. So I think sometimes too, young guys they might not have the right situation, but I would think. If you really want to get better, and that defense got better, you want to get in a rotation, you're going to have to dominate. But you pat them on the back, but you also show them, hey, we don't care what pick you were. We're a pretty good defense. We can be great with you, but you got to have to get this. And then it's on the player.
When does that go out the window? Because we see it all, especially in football, maybe in baseball too. This guy, he stinks, but he's not going to get cut because he was a first-round pick 2 years ago. And then you got to make a tough decision on a guy, that maybe got picked further down the line who's producing but may not have the upside that the first.
I always say look at successful organizations in every sport. Most of them don't care what the draft status says. Can you develop? Because everybody's going to draft a bust, and everybody's going to find a few that they didn't think were going to be good. Can you develop? Like the Rays. We're going back to the Rays. The Rays develop players. They get the maximum out of guys, whether they drafted them or whether they find them on the market. The Heat. Go back to that. There's 9 undrafted dudes on that team. They develop players. They don't think the Heat give a shit. They haven't had a first-round pick, it seems like, in 10 years. And they're still, 1 quarter or 1.1 seconds away from the NBA Finals. And they've won 3.
How about the Seahawks? The way they develop their defense all the time. Pete Carroll.
Correct.
Pete Carroll gets guys in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, and they always end up starting and being really good on defense.
And then you look at every organization, though. Most organizations that have players like that, they draft into a system, and the system stays in place. How many times have you seen the Browns change coaches and their team stinks? The Dolphins went through it for 20 years. Change the coach. Well, then you change the entire scheme, and now you got to flip-flop and turn over the whole roster because your offense doesn't work with these players. But you look at successful teams I feel like the Eagles, they could have very easily taken offensive guys, and their defense is outstanding, but they took 2 guys that dominated college football with guys that already played with them in college. And you just made a dominant defense even more dominant and deeper. So they have a way of doing things. I think I'm not an Eagles fan like you guys are, But when I think Eagles, I think of defensive tackles, right? Like run stoppers. They've always had one, so deep for years, going back to, I think it was Jerome Brown. My gosh, the ex-UM guy back in the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep,
They just see, I always see, guys that defenses that are animals. And when Donovan McNabb was there, their defense was stout. I always feel like going into Philly, you guys can get your head knocked off. So I just, that's one thing that always bothered me about the Dolphins. Like, everybody wants to fire the head coach. Well, in the GM, yeah, but at the same token, trust me, I was one that wanted the GM fired for 5 years now because we just can't draft players. But you keep changing, you're not going to hit lightning in a bottle. It ain't gonna. You might have a good team. You don't have a program. Like, good teams in the NFL have Bill Belichick. He runs an organization, a program, right? If you're a college, Saban has a program, right? Kirby Smart has a program. Like, some teams are good. TCU had a good team this year. I wouldn't say they're an elite program yet. They've been good for a significant time, but then they kind of fell off. They had a good team last year, right? Programs survive, and you recruit kids or draft kids into your program that fits to sustain winning.
But, like, you mentioned Belichick there, and obviously you know all about, you're a Dolphins fan. You know all about Belichick. But, like, Belichick, he's done it for years, especially on defense, with not the best talent, vacuum-sealed talent guys. He goes, you know what? I need my linebacker to fill the hole and run downhill and make a tackle. Just, I don't care what round it is. Find me the best guy in the draft that does that. Mm-hmm. And if you're a baseball team, like my shortstop, like, do you think even at the professional level, running it like a program, you said, like, you need –
But you have a philosophy. You have a philosophy pitching-wise. You have a philosophy hitting-wise, right? Like, do you want polished college guys who have 3 pitches, or are you trying to find the best available arm? Like Velo, we can teach that, or he fits into this. We can take that, or I want athletic. Like some teams only take shortstops, right? They only take shortstops. Only take center fielders. Oh,
can you say
they can't play center? You go play left or go play right. If you don't play shortstop, you can move to second. Then you play third or first. Like, some teams don't draft first baseman. Some teams don't. Everybody drafts catchers. But, like, the point is, you have a system in your head of do you want to be a high power on base team? You want to be an on base percentage team, or do you want to be boppers? Right? You try to obviously get a mix of everything, but you have a philosophy. High walk rate, right? Well, you draft guys. You don't draft guys who have 10 walks and 100 punch outs. They're not going to fit into your system.
Do you believe in that? Like, do you think if you can play center field, you can play all 3 of the outfield positions? If you can play shortstop, you can play anywhere in the diamond? No question.
No question.
If you can play second,
I get it. It takes time.
Be short. That's one thing for sure. Just because you can play second doesn't make you a shortstop.
Correct.
Because you need the arm. You have to. If you have the arm to play shortstop, then you can play third or second.
And there's some shortstops that get moved that can't make the throw from third. I get it. I understand it. But, like, athletically, right? Right. If you can play shortstop, there really shouldn't be anything you can't do on a baseball field.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't have a good enough arm to play, you have to have a great arm to play third. But you need to have a pretty good arm to play short too.
Oh yeah. But, I mean, David Eckstein didn't have a cannon. He threw everybody out. There's ways around stuff, but at the same token, I always say, like, look at our Twins. Like, I think we had a pretty good system growing up. I mean, like, when I was in the Twin system, we were pretty good at developing our own players. And, like, Torrey Hunter was our diamond in the rough, right? He was the first rounder of 92, I think, or 93 was the first rounder, and very raw, but he was athletic, gifted freak, right? Could throw hard, could hit balls 8 miles.
Five-tool player. He was really good.
Like, an elite person, like, human being through the roof. But, like, he was surrounded by a bunch of baseball players. And, like, eventually Torrey got it. And like we were lucky because we got to watch his greatness. It wasn't consistent in the minor leagues, but like you got to see where, like he'd go climb a fence and rob a homer or throw a guy out from the fence to third. And you're like, damn, you don't see that every day. Like we got to watch him develop in front of our eyes going, man, he can fly, do all this stuff, hit, and all of a sudden, man, Torrey's really struggling. Boom, there goes a ball over the scoreboard. It's like, never mind. That's why he's going to be our starting center fielder for a decade, because he can do that. But like we were around, Corey Koski, Jock Jones, me, AJ, the list goes on in the minor leagues. Guys who knew how to take at bats, and like we weren't, nothing we did wowed you, but we just played the game right. And like I said, Torrey, eventually you always knew that Torrey, but I always said this, if you put Torrey at 18 years old around 7 other Torrey Hunters at the same time, it could have looked epic some nights and it could look like a train wreck. It's like, and that's just because he was a super athlete. He wasn't a baseball player yet, right? And that's kind of how we look at the minor leagues. It's like, well, you got to put him around some guys who can do some things. And, there's something to be said about guys who know how to take it at bat, and they're important to your organization. Whether they make it to the big leagues or not, they're important to how you teach and how you develop certain people.
We used to go to the AA. It was Boston at the time. It's the Yankees, now Trenton Thunder.
Trenton, oh yeah.
And Eckstein, and I think Adam Kennedy made it to the bigs.
There was quite a few that
they had a few. Yeah, Nomar Garcia Parra, remember him?
Nomar was there. I'm trying to think. I
missed Nomar though. We got our tickets after Nomar made it.
So you must have been around, that's like around 96, 97, 98. If it was 97, I was there. They were still the Red Sox then.
Nomar was there when they had the strike in 95. No, 94.
94.
Yeah, Nomar was there around the strike, because I just remember when they had the strike, I just, Trenton was right by where I was like 20 minutes from their stadium. So I used to go with one of my buddies every Friday night to see the Thunder, and I remember Nomar, and I just said to myself, that guy's going to be a pro, and he was only hitting about 260, 270 at the time, but he was playing shortstop, and I was like, this guy's definitely going to make the major leagues. He's really good. And sure enough,
he's first rounder too.
Yeah,
I played that Georgia Tech team that had Veritek, Garcia Parra, and Jay Payton on it.
Oh my God,
man, they were good.
I heard Jay Payton in the minor leagues was like a prodigy, right?
It was. He was
supposed to be. They
really
expected. Good. Yeah, they expected a lot more from him. I mean, he was a good player. Don't get me wrong. He was a very good player. But when he was in the minors, supposedly they really, really thought he was going to be a big time player.
It's very, very close to a 5-tool guy too.
Yeah, he could hit.
But like when you watched Eckstein play, it was like he did all the little stuff, and he did all
like
the
in college too.
Stuff perfect. And you're like, all right, this guy's not going to be maybe the MVP of the league. He eventually won I think it was the World Series MVP the one year for the Cardinals.
I think he won
twice.
2 of them.
He won 2.
I know, because he didn't win it. He didn't win it for the Angels, but he did win 2 World Series. And he was the MVP of the World Series.
The MVP for one of them, I think, right?
Yeah.
But like you could just tell, like this guy is not.
Yeah, St. Louis. Trust me, he was in the Gators. I couldn't stand him.
Oh, he was in the Gators.
You gotta love it.
All right. Any last minute thoughts, guys? We got to get out of here. Sports Jeopardy's coming up next at 9:30 with Mr. Frank Vesby and Andy Ritter. I am not sure who the A2D staff members are tonight. I lost my match. I was on the debut match. Yeah, they ask hard questions, man. I'm a sports nerd, and
last week they had
last week.
Yeah,
last week they answered. They asked significantly easier questions. And,
you think?
Yeah, Brian. It's funny because Daly and I were both.
That's who I played, Daly from the hockey.
We were both watching. At the same time, and we were answering all the questions, and then Brodo says, should I listen to Brad and Brian because I don't agree with them? And Brian and I were like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. Okay, they're saying who was the 2016 enforcer that won the MVP of the All-Star game, and both Brian and I put John Scott. Like before he could even finish the sentence, we just put John Scott because that if you're a hockey fan,
You were cheating.
that's the easiest question of
Well, I
all.
didn't even think that. Where were you 2 weeks ago when I was getting slaughtered? I should have just looked in the comments for all the answers.
So, Brodo is like, should I go with them or should I go with somebody else?
What sport was this? Hockey?
Hockey? Yeah,
I couldn't tell you.
yeah. They're asking hockey questions, and both of us we're giving them the answers, and like they weren't listening to us, and we're like,
You're cheating.
uh-huh.
Yeah, you were cheating.
Well, we weren't cheating. We were telling them the answers, and I think Brodo finally started
The
listening.
answers cheating.
Yeah. Okay.
You always yell about the Astros, and then you're no better.
You're banging on a garbage can.
Yeah. All right. Excellent show. Thank you to our great sponsors.
Yes,
Thank you to everyone who commented and shared the show. Until next Monday, peace out, everybody.
Go Heat. Go Heat.
Go Heat.
Go Heat.
Come on.